Hello, listeners. It's Gunter Swoboda here with some exciting news. We're on the lookout for sponsors to join us on our incredible journey with Inspired Change with Gunter. If your organization cares deeply about meaningful conversations around masculinity, self development, and mental health, we'd love to partner with you. Our podcast has a wonderful, dedicated audience committed to personal growth and positive social change. By sponsoring Inspired Change with Gunter, your brand will connect with listeners who truly value thoughtful discussion and support initiatives that promote real transformation. We're incredibly proud to be ranked #1 in Australia and #5 in the USA on FeedSpot's top men's mental health podcasts. For more information on how to become a sponsor, please reach out to Miranda Spiegner Sapon, our showrunner and executive producer. We'd love to explore how we can work together to inspire change. Now, thank you for your continued support, and let's keep inspiring change together.
You're listening to Inspire Change, a broadcast that strives to educate, motivate, and empower men to challenge traditions of masculinity. To guide us through the intricacies and intersections of emotions, relationships, and male identity is renowned psychologist, author, and speaker Gunter Swoboda. This is Inspire Change.
Before I begin the actual podcast, I would like to respectfully acknowledge the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation, who are the traditional custodians of the land on which I work. I would also like to pay my respects to their elders past and present. Welcome everybody to another episode of Inspire Change with Gunter. I'm your host.
Welcome, everybody, to Inspired Change with Gunter, the podcast where we take on the big questions about men, masculinity, and what it really means to live well and live authentically, especially in a world that's constantly shifting beneath our feet. I'm your host, Gunter Swoboda, and today I have the pleasure and privilege of speaking with someone who doesn't just talk about change, he lives it and he facilitates it every day for others. My guest is John Milham, a leadership coach, facilitator, and an all-around good bloke. However, or maybe, and he is a man who's walked through his own fire to arrive at a place of deeper presence and clarity. John helps men and organizations cut through the noise, uncover what really matters, and build cultures inside themselves and around them to support real well-being. So, John, welcome to Inspire Change.
Well, Gunter, I want to meet the bloke you just talked about, right? He sounds terrific, right?
Yeah, I've met him, and as I said, he's a really good bloke.
Fantastic. I'm going to put him on my Christmas card list.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. I feel humble and very, very pleased to be here and to have a discussion with you on topics that I'm constantly listening to you about and shaking my fist or screaming in joy when you talk about some of the things that you just mentioned. You know, like men's well-being and mental health. Yeah.
Well, thank you. Keep in mind, I don't particularly want to see this as an interview, but much, much more as a dialogue, a conversation. You know, we tend to do that over cups of coffee and stuff like that.
Yeah,
so let's just duplicate, you know, how we relate.
Perfect. Yeah.
However, one thing, sorry, go on.
No, I was just going. And you know, hopefully, like, I would love this. Like, something popped up on my Facebook feed just as I logged on this morning. And it was an old meme that I'd paste up. Now, I'm not a meme, you know, machine at all.
Yeah.
But this one was about me just, you know, it was saying, I want to have deep conversations. I want to talk about atoms and the universe and God and the Earth's core and science fiction and philosophy and all of that stuff.
Yeah.
So I'm particular. Like, I find it particularly relevant that you invite me a dialogue today, right now, because I think, like, what has happened to men and their willingness to sit down and have these discussions, right?
Yes, I agree. Uh, I play around with all sorts of explanation, but few are satisfying in a sense. Uh, there's only a few people really who will join me in that sort of depth that you're looking for as well. I mean, often the conversations around sport, the job, right? And, as much as that is part of living, I, like you, thirst for that deeper discussion and dialogue, conversation, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, we have um, only one day is devoted to giving us presents, like
Yeah.
for being alive, right? Our
Yeah.
birthday. Every
Yeah.
other day, right, is
Yeah.
about us giving presents to others, right?
Yes.
So we seem to have got it right. We're walking through the world expecting every day to be acknowledged and
Yeah.
handed the gifts of life, right? And
Yeah.
I'm just going, hang on, it doesn't feel right. Like, it feels like we're missing the point that particularly as a man, the whole purpose of being a man, in my mind, is to grow yourself and serve others, right?
Yeah.
In a very simple philosophy, right?
Yeah. Yeah. No, I absolutely agree. And the question, still hangs about what's happened to us where this has become almost shunned. Like I love philosophy, I love history, I love the sciences, and often I get the sort of comment about, oh, let's not get too deep. And
Yeah,
I'm going, well, hang on a minute, what's too deep? I don't
yeah,
think you can get deep enough.
yeah. I recall a wonderful catch up with the old uni crowd, right? At
Yeah,
the Oaks, having a beautiful afternoon, a lot of fun. It's very easy, right? That free, you pick up almost like you left off 40 years ago. But one of the blokes, obviously I'm a very different man after my journey
yeah,
through the lived experiences, the things that have been important and have taught me a lot about
mm,
life, as difficult as some of them were. Right. But I'm sitting there chatting, and he just looked at me and he goes, "Look, John, I love you, but like, you're exhausting. Can't we just talk about footy sometimes, right?" I just go, what? Like, I'm inspired by that conversation, and I want to ask you, the guru, the man who has devoted his life to finding answers to these questions. Why is he exhausted by that conversation? Yeah.
Well, again, it's one of the fundamental questions. In a nutshell, I don't know. Emotionally, I don't understand it.
Yeah.
Right? Intellectually, I can go, well, maybe he lacks, the education, or maybe he lacks, the motivation to enter in that. Sometimes people, especially in a world where we're sort of raised to be competitive, feel like we can't keep up,
Yeah.
right? But what stays with me is that word exhaustion.
Mm.
That to me designates an emotional reaction.
Yeah.
It's not just intellectual.
No, yeah. From like their soul, like the
Mm,
core of it. And yet, what do we have energy for? We have energy for what? Work,
mm,
competition, the things you talk about with patriarchy, right? We have energy for defending our kingdom, right?
yep,
We have energy for acquiring new territories, right?
yep,
We have
yeah,
energy for, like, power, or the perception of power, taking on a role and pretending it is
yep,
us. So I
yep,
don't know why that's more important than being, a protector, a provider,
yeah.
a service person. But, are they the same and just misunderstood? Yeah.
Good question. I think there is a cultural difference. I think, coming from Europe, my experience, even like meeting someone in a coffee shop,
Mm.
has a different feel.
Mm.
They're curious about you. There's a sense of wanting to connect. It's not just about something. It's about, like, tell me about yourself,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So let me start here because you raised the point for our listeners, right? And
Yeah.
I'm pleased to say we've got quite a strong, huge community now.
Yeah. It's
Uh,
amazing. Yeah.
I would love it if you would share with me and the community uh, about, how you got to where you are, right?
Yeah.
Because, I mean, all of us get to this point in this particular field not through simple desire for status or money, but actually because we're trying to find, it's almost like that calling, and it's through challenges, it's through pain and, you know,
Absolutely.
suffering. Now,
Yeah.
one thing that I want to flag is I want to ask you a question towards the end about, and the question is this: is suffering good?
Oh,
Right?
wow. Yeah.
But shelve it because I,
Yeah.
really want to hear your story.
We'll get to Schopenhauer later, but yeah, wow, what an invitation to talk. I would say, right, I've been just interesting diving in a little bit into the idea of maturity. What makes a grown man grown? Like when is he mature, right? And I tend to sort of flippantly point out to people that like you can be grown physically, but you can be. So many of us are a long way from grown emotionally, right? So for me, that's important because the time I was born, this life now, was born in the fire of losing my wife, right? So, and which is now, just gone 18 years. So, and it's interesting because what we're talking about is Joseph Campbell's hero's journey. You step into the challenge of life in some way, and you are given trials, tribulations, and tests. You suffer, you fail, and you keep going, and then through the magical aid of the world, like your magician turns up, or your guru, or and you overcoming those trials, you reach a point where Joseph Campbell calls it apotheosis, which is death and rebirth.
It's the phoenix from the ashes.
Exactly. And it's true. I talk to people on podcasts who have gone through terrible things, amazing stories of suffering, trauma, and yet they come through with this resilience and this understanding, and they look, there are a few ways you can go, and of course not everyone grows from that, right? But there's a significant portion of humans that have that phoenix effect, where they come out and they are more than they went into the suffering or trauma with. And I wonder, like going back to the thought you started with, I wonder if that's, like as Schopenhauer says, maybe that's the purpose of life. But let's get in. For me, I came back surprised myself. I got through, and maybe it was arrogance, maybe it was luck, maybe it was purpose. Anyway, I'm not particularly confident to call it, but from the trials and tribulations I went through, which were, started with the loss of my soulmate and partner, who I'd been together from 16 with, right?
Wow.
And that's at 42. And then the whole challenge of having your identity destroyed and then trying to remake it. I was a corporate guy, and I realized in that journey of trying to build some self-awareness that the corporate philosophy was sucking the soul out of me. So then I had to find a new direction. And in that finding and seeking new supports, new identity, new purpose, I was remade into someone who gave a crap, right? And realized so much of what I was doing was like robotic, following the culture, following the training, following the pressure, the socialization that I was under. and I wanted more. I wanted to, I wanted to break myself out of that sort of robotic haze and move into some form of agency, realizing at the same time that the guru path was not right either, because I wasn't brilliant. I wasn't sort of Buddha-like. I was aspirational, but not competent, right? So I had to grow and achieve things, as well as let go of the need to be in charge of anything, right? And I had to learn so many new tools to interact, and the world doesn't particularly support that journey.
No. But, I'm going to challenge you a little bit. Possibly in that frame, you're more Buddha-like than what you think.
Yeah, that's the belly, right? Yeah, but, I'm talking brain here, right?
No.
Rick Hanson wrote a book, The Buddha's Brain, and I would love to sort of, to have the Buddha's brain rather than his belly, right? So, yeah.
We're going to maybe discuss this off camera at another time, because I share with you that sense of humility, and when you talk to me about being the guru and so on, I sometimes actually I get uncomfortable.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't like to, and I'm not an expert. I mean, I'm just started doing research and working towards doctorate, and I'm running across material where I go, shit, this is blowing my mind. There's so much out there.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So it is interesting that why does it, for some of us, okay, why does it open us up to a rebirth, yet for others they fall into an existential vacuum? Yeah. They either rebuild based on the same old story, or they're completely lost. Yeah. And even trying to help and support them through that vacuum, where we try to shine a light for them and go, look, here are many paths, but choose one, not the old one.
Yeah. So that's such a huge question, and it haunts me, right? And I've got some thoughts about it, right? Because I had to answer the question, like changing to live a heart-centered life means that you have to go revisit old questions and come up with, like, hang on, that, like, the old answer doesn't work.
Yeah.
So, for instance, just a very simple issue that pops up constantly in our area, but also is big for Australia at the moment, right? There are people getting very hot and angry at young people who are antisocial or doing things that feel like they're antisocial. And of course, once upon a time, I was quite happy to lock them up, give them a beating, treat it. In the old days, we would take them out the back of the shed and sort it out, right?
Yeah.
And that's not adequate for me anymore, right? That's not where I'm. I separate the behaviour from the person. I say. So my question is, what about that young person's life is not working so badly that they are unable to do things that are good for themselves and others.
Yeah.
Right? And people go, yeah, look at the outcome, right? But the outcome, like, we dismiss outcomes in so many things. Well, look at the gold that the potential of a human that is going to waste. And being angry at that human is exactly what, is likely got them into that position. So the society is just telling them, repeating that they are not safe, that they're acting out is an appropriate response because everyone hates them, right? Yeah. So I'm sitting there thinking, why do politicians and why do men cheat, right? All these things. And I'm going, it has to go back to a fundamental need not being met. And I think it's safety, and I think it's fear that drives the behavior, the destructive, dominating, sort of the dark side of patriarchy, the dark side of love, the dark triad, right? Why are people, antisocial? Why are people psychotic? And I think it's fear, right? Someone pointed out that in the past there were places of complete rest. Where in our very, very complex and uncertain and ambiguous world can you switch off? Kids constantly, even when they come home, they are threatened with the need to be better at homework, better at after-school activities meant to improve them. They are, to have more things. Social media. They need to be, better every time they turn on and compare themselves with the delusional life that's represented.
Yeah.
What such constant threat. We spend our lives in this fight, flight, freeze, or appease kind of section.
Yeah, we've created, people talk about the utopia, but this thing is like hell. If I use it literally, like in a literary sense. And I mean, when we talk, well, what's the influence? I agree with you. It's a lack of feeling safe and secure. And underneath that is a fear of annihilation.
Yeah.
Right. And
it's not, a man doesn't fear death. He fears being completely gone. Right. So a bloke will step out in front of a bus to save a child. Right.
Yeah.
But, but ask, because that's just physical courage.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But ask him to love his child, right? When he's dealing, because, or, give up time from working to his family, and you've got a real issue, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting as you were talking about that, I was thinking of a random thought that came into my head, which often happens. Why were the Egyptians so bent on having this continuity of themselves in their history? I mean, that's exactly what you're talking about. Is this, not being wiped, right? And you go to most sort of, because I've been doing a lot of reading in anthropology, and you go to most indigenous cultures, and most of the time you continue to be alive whilst your name is spoken.
Yeah, it's such a interesting aspect, because the Ascent of Man show, I remember being a young bloke watching that, and I remember that they had this image of 100 years, right, and they had a person at every age, right? They started the show, so just born all the way through to 100, right? And they were all in this forest being photographed in one long line. And they said, at that moment I heard, that your grandkids may know your name, but your great-grandkids probably won't know your name, and your great-great-grandkids will never know you existed, right? So, and I'm just thinking, that's absolutely horrifying a thought, right? I didn't, not that I'm going to be, torn apart in some sort of dramatic accident to die, but that my grandkids won't know my name, right? That's it filled me full of fear. And that's always stuck with me. The idea of legacy is, how do I leave a legacy just like that says, John, you were someone, right? You existed, you traveled this earth. It's almost like the great tragedy men have is this sense of not being, dramatic or not dying early or whatever. It's this disappearing, as you say, being erased, right? I agree.
And in traditional sort of male norms, we compensate, I believe, for basically creating material stuff. Money, edifices, all sorts of things. But we don't look inside. This is outside. We don't look at that. Compassion and love is going to get us a lot further than building a fucking building.
Yeah, absolutely. You asked, and the thing that came up, you asked about why I'm like I am now. And, what came up were a series of events that were like those, that apotheosis, that, that sort of levered. If we want to take a gamified view of it, I've leveled up, right? I went through life, killing the monster and leveling up. And one of those days that was so important, because after the death of my wife, that was the bit that ripped the gauze off all of the workarounds and all the cover of all of the emotional wounds that I had not dealt with from childhood. My parents were messed up, and they passed that fully on to us. I had to deal with things, and we'd papered over. And my wife had been this amazing traveler that my guide through life, right? She'd be, so when she went, I went back. The grief and the pain exposed all of the unresolved things. So I call that my crazy period. And being a bit wacko, right? And of course, then the system got involved and gave me a few names for it. I was suffering complicated grief, adjustment disorder. I had general anxiety disorder, right? I had a few things to hang a hat on. Still had to be functional. The system gives you names, but not much help, right? In some cases, right? It's rare to find somebody who's actually changing your circumstance. With greatest respect to a man who does, right, like yourself. But one time, so as a result of those, distractions in life, right, the breakdowns, right, I made a series of decisions that were very unhelpful for things like material stuff. So, being very well off in the corporate world, having a house in the Northern Beaches and all of that stuff, I proceeded to dismantle all of that safety net with a series of what would, best described as crazy things, right? Selling houses for, and losing money and investing in schemes and, sort of leaving, leaving jobs to take up, sort of causes. And anyway, like most people describe me as crazy. So I found myself in a rather bizarre situation where I'd either lost or became separated from all of my resources. I had 3 kids. I had to try and house, feed, and educate them. I'd moved careers and I'd been doing quite well, and then I just, found a way to not be able to do that, right? So I'm sitting there challenged on that material. So I had enough money for a coffee just at the time, and a lot of stress. I was losing my housing, I was losing my work. So I'm sitting there at the coffee shop, and I'm sitting at the beautiful coffee shop at Bilgola, right? Sitting down there. It's very early in the morning. You would have to say that you're in this moment of absolute despair, because so much of what you think is important is just gone. Right. I had nothing. Right. And by conventional assessment, I was in a terrible way. John, what have you done? You've lost your nest egg. You lost your savings, your backup. You're not looking after kids. You've got housing insecure. Everything. So I'm sitting there at the coffee shop, and I just, I got that first coffee. I had 10 cents extra in my pocket. And then the universe conspired to shift or support me just in this bizarre way. So, like people would come. I bumped into someone I knew, and they had a question, and we talked, and they bought me a coffee. And, it was this incredibly, empowering conversation where my service was noted and needed and they were grateful for. And then someone else came, a convenience, and then we had this moment of connection with someone else. And then there's another friend who who pop past and said, "Oh, you're just the person I need to talk to," right? And then the guys at the coffee shop, someone hadn't picked up their breakfast, so they brought me a breakfast as well, right? And at the same time, I'm sitting there watching the sunrise over the most beautiful morning, crystal clear and sapphire skies and glistening jeweled waters. Just at that beautiful sort of autumn feel. And suddenly I just knew that I had got the criteria for success wrong. It wasn't my fault. I hadn't done it, right? Everyone had told me and trained me to believe that that certain things in life were important and valuable, and they were not, right? And the idea of having enough money for a coffee was nothing to do with the wealth I was sitting in on that same morning, right?
It's a beautiful story, John.
And that changed me. I began to lean into this idea that I could do with less, and I could do more with less, like more as in build deeper conversations with people, right? Where I could be more available. Right? If I had no material resource to justify my legacy, I would have to have a legacy of connection, or a legacy of communication, or a legacy of heart-based activity, right? And so I started trying to find a way to do that. And that led to me feeling like I have the key to untold riches. And it's, it's like it's here. I'm so rich for having this conversation.
It's interesting. One of the things that I often think about is that patriarchy teaches us to perfect the mask, not the man.
That is a sharp meme, right? Yeah. And it rings so true. The things you have to, I used to call it the corporate cloak, right? I'd have to walk into the office and I'd have to put on the cloak, right? Which turned me into an individual that followed the values of the building, not the man, right? So and which meant that I could dismiss people, I could belittle people, I could disadvantage people, I could things that you would never do at home or locally. Or maybe you would do because you've been trained 25 years in a role to then to transport someone else's values, right? And you start exercising them in your life, and that can't be a good thing.
I completely agree. I mean, the way that I see it is this perpetuation of busyness rather than being. And like, if we talk about it, physiologically, when a woman is pregnant and she's overly stressed, that has a significant impact on the baby.
And if a woman is singing and loving and demonstrating a good connection to her partner, the baby's also picking that up. Right?
Yes. Absolutely.
So it's so true that the dismissing that concept and sort of not paying attention to those little things can shape a baby's early experience of the world. Right?
Yeah, absolutely. Nothing like getting Pink Floyd pumped into the belly. As long as it's not Umma Gumma.
I don't want to. Anything with the wall in it is probably a no go these days, right? But it was interesting because I was looking at a report from loneliness to social connection, right?
Yeah,
it was issued by the World Health Organization.
Yeah, I've seen that one, I think.
Yeah, and
it's done recently.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it's a significant piece of work on the thing, and I'm so interested in, because like you, the idea of letting go of the usual measures of success, right, means that people are lonely because they're ostracized, right? And that's self-imposed, or it's imposed by circumstance, or it's imposed by the community around them, right? So, but either way, ostracism creates the pain and suffering that leads to a whole bunch of really bad outcomes, like suicide and violence, and loss of capacity. But the report, the one I read, there were two options. There was the report, and then there was the plain language report.
Yeah, right.
Now, I was fascinated by the plain language report because I tend to love to. I'm so impressed by all the people with their clever ways of describing things, and fancy words around the model, or the theory of change, or the theory of. So I went to the plain language, and it was just like this beautiful thing where it's not that you don't understand the report. It's just that you go, this isn't a alien endeavor. This is my endeavor, right?
Yes.
Whether I'm suffering or whether I'm supporting, it is a job for me and my community to help and get involved. Whereas, so the psychology world is almost like we create new names for old, relative, quite human things, and we give it a proprietary, clever name like thwarted belonging, right?
Yeah.
Which all that means is I feel like I've got something I'm a part of.
Yeah.
Right? And yet, thwarted belonging is a concept that is implicated in all sorts of suffering at a psychosocial level. But being a part of things is something everybody understands is important and feels good, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I love this idea of part of our journey is to go, no, this is me who is involved in helping and supporting and restoring, right? It's not a pathological, it's not a medical, it's not a psychology there's not a barrier to me entering into the discussion and solution of these psychosocial issues, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree. And one of my criticisms over time, and we were almost getting there in the 60s and 70s, where our work was humanistic and focused on not just pathology but also existential. So what is our purpose? What is our meaning? To then shifting into the 80s, and suddenly we're mechanizing psychology through firstly biologizing it, right, and then secondly by mechanizing interventions, right. So and that if I have a symptom like I'm getting a headache, and I know that headache coming from my tense neck muscles and shoulders, the tool is to learn how to relax those muscles, right? So that's fine. But is that actually going to help me stop getting so tense all the time that I get a headache? Well, in part it will, but it's not necessarily the driver.
No, we that's so true, and that medicalizing everything means that you spend so much time on symptoms and not causes, as you pointed out. But the causes are upstream. They're about the way people interact, right? Their culture, their epigenetic concerns, generational, and they're often, as you mentioned earlier, I think they're often about some form of distress, right? And the way we are trained to deal with that. So, which causes fear of further distress, which makes it a threat, which means where stress is part of our processing of fear. So, when you are tense, and you express that physically, right? That's why things like yoga and massage and meditation are so powerful, because they allow us to access the physical triggers of emotional and psychological situation.
Yeah.
Right? They're
Yeah.
not separate, right? So, you know,
No.
they're an entry, they're connected. So I think you're absolutely right. You know, like whether we have a headache that is caused by the muscles being tense, the muscles being tense that is caused by a fear of losing your job or your partner or not, getting sick or something, right? So what do? We go to a doctor and he gives us Panadol, right? You know, and how the hell does that help? You know?
Well, it might cover the pain, but it only reduces it. It doesn't actually get a shift.
Yeah, and we go back to that. We go back to you saying, when we talked about earlier about making those, the people making decisions, right? Why do we not? Why as a community do we do things that are not good for us? And I think it's that fog of pain, right? Like it's, if our solution to some of that psychache is to go and, to take drugs, like whether it's out, the alcohol or drugs that we prescribe ourselves or the medications and pharmacological responses that others prescribe for us. We're increasing our level of fog and our level of confusion. We're not getting clarity, and we're not standing up to the big questions. It's a form of avoidance, and avoidance will always take us away from the solution.
Yeah, absolutely. This gives us a lens into how is it that in all this time, let's put the stake in the ground from the 1980s onwards, where we become more conscious about gender inequities and all that, men's health statistics are getting worse.
Oh yeah, totally.
We are more suicidal as a group than we've ever been.
Yeah.
Right. Yet we're more affluent.
Yeah.
Right.
More money being spent on that. Right.
Yes, absolutely. And yet if I put on a business hat here, I'm not getting a lot of return for my investment here. And this is where I go, we really do need to deconstruct the model we've got and reconstruct it. It's not just on a personal level as a human being like you have done, and like all of us who've sort of gone, okay, I need to change.
Yeah.
Right? How do I change? And towards what? Right? We need to do this socially. And that social thing requires that human connection. It's not the ghost in the machine, it's the soul.
That's so true. Yeah, that's so true. And it's interesting because the process, right? We're getting away from we're interfering, we're blocking, we're changing, we're making it more difficult for people to move away from it. Like we should be supporting people who become focused on service, that get activated by life circumstances or their discovery of what that means to them, and then want to help, right? But we make it difficult for people to help, for people to serve. We actually we project, almost like put them in a box, and we diminish their work, right? So if you don't make meet those social norms, like of making money and having material things, life can be very difficult and full of lack of recognition, lack of acknowledgement, respect, right? Most old people are dismissed by the world, right? So if you're over a certain age, right, despite you once wielding ultimate power, right, you're now worth bugger all, right? So right, and no, certainly no one wants to acknowledge it, your expertise or your contribution that's possible. And what an absolute waste that is. Like what a ridiculous outcome that we take away possible resource and solution and benefit, and we just ignore it because it doesn't run around at the same rate it used to, right?
I'm reminded of that program on ABC where they introduced children into an aged care facility.
Brilliant.
You know, has that continued? I don't know. I don't think
I think
so.
they're coming up with a new. They did teenagers. I think they're doing a new season, and what that
Right.
highlights is, and this goes back to that sort of plain language versus psychology,
Yeah.
right? People, the system seems to need to have something that's fancy, or something that's gilt, right, covered
Yeah.
in gold and a bit shiny,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Humans just need connection. Right.
Yes.
Right. So one of the answers for almost improving every situation of distress, particularly men. If I go back to men, one of the answers
Yeah.
is to have a very close companion in the challenge.
Yeah.
Right. Right. Now that can be someone or it can be someone who, say, like me, is someone who's willing to walk with blokes while they while they take a breath and get themselves sorted, right? So often the resources for dealing with these challenges are already in the bloke, right? Like we're an incredibly resourceful mechanism, but it's got an external on-off button, right?
Yeah.
So you just need someone to come along and replace your batteries,
Yeah.
press the button, and wait till you get speed again, get up to speed again, right? Just hold you steady like a bit of training wheel. So, and that's what communities used to do, but it was always what we tend to do is tie it up with structure and hierarchy. We got to give everything a boss and a follower, right? We tend to patriarch our level of our services, right? Our community gift, if you will. And we need to stop that. We just have to say, right, on one hand, humans are dichotomous. We can live with the idea that we're all the same, and on the other hand, that some people are in charge and some aren't, right? Those two concepts can work, and we have to be, because we're smart enough, we have to be intentional about that. And it's about breaking down the idea that people who are not the same, or is not as accomplished, or not focusing on the same things as me, are not broken.
Yeah.
They're actually beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, this idea of brokenness and pathologizing, and in certain instances there is a functional value to some degree, right? But in the bigger process, it's not. I mean, and we have this thing going at the moment where we've got to take everything, whack a label on it, and stick it in a box. And despite the fact that we're always talking about, let's not stigmatize it, let's not, make it feel bad, it still does. If I talk to a 15-year-old who's been told he's got dyslexia and he's got ADHD, or some other generalized anxiety disorder, oppositional defiance behavior, any label, and his reaction is, I'm broken. He mightn't use those words. And with that comes two things. One is shame, and the other one is anger.
Wow. Yeah. That's so true. And I can understand the anger, because anger is the language of, like, it has a purpose. Anger is protective. It gives us the energy and the courage to take a step out of a dangerous situation, right? So it has real purpose. It can be useful, but it is such an inappropriate way to address most of the challenges of life. The trouble is, we are socialized to use anger as men as the only way we express ourselves. So when we're frustrated, when we're frightened, when we're interrupted, when we feel our worth, or our our identity being challenged, we often resort to anger as our defense. And it's those moments, it's a really inappropriate way of engaging, right? So it's good. Anger is a great way of protecting you when something, really physically and rapidly dangerous, but we should avoid it to solve emotional and identity issues, right? So we don't know what to do with that, right? And that's when we have to have access to the wise men around us who have solved this problem, who have developed an ability to regulate despite triggers, right? And that they can remain calm in this storm, and as a consequence, turn on the button for your own resources, right? Your resilience, your understanding, your capacity, right? And when we do that, men immediately calm down, and they then are much more able to start to click into learning mode, right? Saying, okay, what I've normally done isn't working for me. What do I really need? How do I, what options do I have to solve that problem? And it's kind of like a process issue, right? We've always said this is a weird, magic, unconscious mind thing, but it's not really. Men love solving things, and this is just one of those times where you have to get into that solution mode, right?
Yeah, and that's where I sort of go, okay, let's take all these bits, right, and let's see how they interconnect, right?
Yeah.
It's not an either-or thing, it's an and also, right? So if you, for example, can't find a way of working with your anger, you're going to go into aggression, rage, and violence. Because at each point is a point of reflection if you can take it.
Yeah.
Like if I'm about to pick up that bowl and want to throw it across the room, there is that split second where I can go, you know what? I think it's better if you put that thing down. But that requires that regulation.
Yeah.
And for a lot of people, that regulation has never been explored.
No.
I didn't get it as a kid, right? Especially if, say, for example, mum or dad go, oh, he's just a boisterous boy, or, boys are like that. Well, no, actually, boys aren't like that. They just need a helping hand, a guiding, relationship, which is, you know what? You're actually better off not doing that, because you keep doing it and you're going to get more and more into trouble.
Yeah.
And then you're going to get more and more angry, and then things really fall apart.
Yeah, it's such a weird, like the ignorance of the father is handed to the son, right? You're like, a man wasn't trained in other ways to deal with his inner war, his inner travels, and he's not in a position to pass on much information of use to his son either, right? So
and half the time they're not there.
Yeah, the things they're good at passing on is their trauma or their the suffering that they went through themselves. Hurt people, of course. So we have this legacy of pain and of lack of understanding, and but not the legacy of encouragement, of reinforcement, healing, of support, and of competency, emotional competency.
Yeah. Because the first, to me, that the first step in that is healing. I need to heal.
Yeah.
If I'm bleeding out, I can't really pay too much attention on the next step.
So, and the most selfish time, and that's where this whole idea of pathologizing everything, right, is so inappropriate, because we are selfish when we're in pain. We're selfish when we're hurt. Right. Yeah. So why make everything hurt? Right.
Yes.
right.
Paradoxical.
Yeah. So, that selfishness is there to say, deal with your wounds, right, and then set up a healing process so that you can get back to making sure that you're walking through life, right? And healing. We've now, because people are externally telling us we're broken, we're now externally looking for solutions, right? My wellness is in the hands of my yoga teacher, my ice bath owner, my my doctor, my psychologist, right? But of course, there's only one way to heal, and that's inside out. You can't. These people are there to help you find the environment you need to heal, but the only healing that's done is done by you.
Yeah. The problem that I think socially we encounter in this, suspect, you've got a lot of people who in principle agree. And then you get this.
Yeah.
But all of that takes time.
Yeah. And
right?
investing
And
in a new thing, right?
yeah. And so the government puts a constraint on how you can utilize helping resources and in what way you can, and don't get me wrong, I think we do need to keep a finger on the pulse about, how we're doing things and why we're doing it and with what resources. There is a sense of resources, but we are just, the amount of money that we spend on psychotropic medication.
Yeah.
If we just took a third of that, it'd just open the gates to a much healthier community and much healthier individuals.
It's so interesting, right? So interesting that you've got all these people looking for like assistance in a like a drug or a sort of altered state or whatever, and yet how does it feel being told you're loved? How does it feel being told you're capable? How does it feel being told you're trusted, you're valued, right? We take kids and we give them messages of failure and messages of sanction. I was reading a report where they were saying 70% of the communication between a parent and a child is some form of control or criticism.
Yeah, task orientation. That's the other one that fits in.
Yeah, and most of the time we ask them to do something, and it's completely unnecessary.
Yes.
Right. So most of what we tell or ask kids is unnecessary. Imagine if we swapped that to, wow, I just popped into my mind that I'm really, really enjoying you as a person, right? Like, you're so much fun to be around.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Imagine if
Absolutely.
all of our communication was that.
Yeah.
What would kids, and then what would the adults that sort of inevitably occur at the end of childhood? What would they be able to do, right?
Yeah. Because that is that process to connect with each other, and when we do that, one of the things that I was actually talking to a group of like 3 partners in the accounting firm, and they're having some issues, and the whole hierarchical dominance thing was coming out. Not with the 3. The 3 are actually a step above that, but with one particular manager, executive, and the point that I was making to them is, look, we can certainly pick up on the deficit, but we actually need to establish a relationship with that person. And one of them said, I have a really good relationship with that person. I said, look, with respect, I think you believe you have a good relationship with that person, right? But there's more to it, right? Because the bit is what's this person showing as opposed to what they're experiencing.
Yeah.
And the showing is what they believe is expected.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, I didn't quite put it in exactly those words, but that was the core message.
Yeah.
Because, you talk about the corporate mantle, right? I talk about the corporate armor. We're stuck in this tin can.
Yeah, very true.
And some men either, they have an inkling often about that they really need to take it off.
Yeah.
But then feeling bare with the wind blowing against your bare skin is a bit scary, right? So they try to keep some mask going. And, the interesting thing is...
Well, and they come home and treat their kids like employees.
Yes.
Right? They are separated from them and their partner by that same armour.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
part of that armour is, key performance indicators, KPIs.
Yeah.
Rather than going, tell me how you're going at the moment.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh well. Look. Sure. Your customers are happy, but you turned up 5 minutes late 3 times this month, right? Like that's it, right? We
Absolutely.
cannot continue this relationship, right?
Yeah,
Because
yeah,
KPIs are on tardiness, not on
yeah,
social interaction, action, the quality of relationships, the level of communication, right? All of the things that should be valued are not valued because we
yeah,
have this other empirical kind of bent that says, this is worth more money than the satisfaction of the people around you, right? So,
yeah, yeah. Now, I want to focus on something that I'm really connected with, and that's the Kensuke heroes.
wow, yeah, cool, cool.
Um, Tell me a bit about how that came about and your involvement with it, and
Yeah.
so on.
So kintsugi is the Japanese art that relates to uh, crockery, pottery, being broken and then repaired
Mm.
with with gold mortar, or so. And it, like so many things in Japan, they they take it down to the micro. So to become a master of kintsugi takes years of study, right? So the
Yeah,
way things are broken, the way things are put together, the mixing, the quality of the fix, right?
yeah,
Um, and within that, right, there are two aspects of kintsugi, which is both. The first is the aesthetic, right?
yeah,
How can something broken be even more beautiful than the original, right?
yeah,
How can
yeah,
something repaired and restored can be
yeah,
more valuable than the
yeah,
original, right? And I love that idea, right? And then, of
yeah,
course, then the aesthetic is the process of becoming restored
yeah,
is this process of learning, of growing, of becoming more. So
yeah,
that the thing is, Kintsugi tells us if we heal, we find value and beauty,
yeah,
not in being perfect, but the
mm,
very imperfection of
yeah,
our experience, right?
yeah.
So,
Very Jungian.
oh yeah, so Jungian, right? And so Kintsugi was something that I knew about, right? And there was always this sense of relevance. So the founder of Mentoring Men, Ian Westmoreland, an amazing man, who is he passed on Mentoring Men to the world, and now he said, oh look, I need to rest, so I'll start a brand new charity, right? That's the way he rests.
Yeah,
And he wanted he believes stories are powerful, and he
yeah,
believes that they have the power to heal, to guide, to become something. And so he came up with this idea, and it was someone who suggested that's like kintsugi. And then so he's come up with the idea of kintsugi heroes, that people tell stories. They are like the mortar repairing the brokenness of
yeah,
their circumstance, their lives, or their community. So we
yeah,
started telling stories, and I signed up straight away. I'm a director, but I explored an idea. People have been telling me since my earliest days that I should do talking for a living, right? But because I had signed up to that world that is of no value to anyone,
yeah,
I'll be going and making my 6-figure salary. Thank you very much.
yeah,
Right. I didn't like it wasn't valued. Now I am so I had a chance to do something that was absolutely intrinsic to who I am. Right. So
yeah,
suddenly I felt, wow, I'm finally being the expression of my identity is real. Right. This is where I should be. And it's driven by my curiosity. What you said earlier is perfect. The idea of sitting down and having a coffee and a chat with someone is something I just can't imagine doing without. It's so wonderful. And
yeah,
now I get to do that to produce an outcome that other people can share, right? And
yeah,
so the person I'm talking to, our value is our values, our vision is to help you tell your story that you need to share, so that others who need to hear your story can hear it, right? So
yeah.
and
Beautiful.
I just feel so privileged, um, to be a part of doing that. And we've now, we've got a couple of hundred stories logged. We've picked up grants to do projects. So we've done a project on the fires in Black Sunday, the summer fires. We've done floods in Hunter Valley, and now we just finished one in the River Murray, which was extraordinary. We've done Connecting Seniors, and we've got a new project for part 2 of Connecting Seniors. We've got the experience of immigrants in Australia called From There to Here. We've got the impact of animals on lives. We've got Animals and Us, So we've got these stories coming out with people telling them, and I don't know how it's going to make a difference. I just know it is, right? So
the pebble in the pond, John.
And that's, I saw that it demonstrated. One of the blokes we spoke to early on in the River Murray project, they had terrible floods in 22-23. Thousands of houses and people and businesses and all sorts of things, right? But also stories of triumph and dominable wills and so on. And one of the blokes I spoke to was quite famous for taking photos every day, because the thing about the River Murray floods is they take months to come along, right? So he took photos of the water slowly rising every day, and he became quite famous because he documented this kind of the journey of people, from sort of ignoring it to fear to recovery. Well, I had to talk to him. His story in itself was quite crazy. He was on a disability. He had a terrible accident. He had a checkered background, and he was now, he had reinvented himself by the river.
Yeah,
he'd found this place of peace, and he was physically healing. He was emotionally growing, right? And he had he was shaped by his childhood and lack of expectation and so on. Anyway, he'd found photography. He was taking photos of the river and the animals and locals. And he got this platform, and he became kind of well known, and then he got followed, and then we spoke to him, and then we highlighted him. I put him on, he's in a book. We produced a book, and
I saw that.
And his photos are going around, and at the book launch, he was on the panel. I was speaking to him, and he was so articulate, and he was so helpful, and he brought his mother and father and sister and aunt along, right? And they were sitting there watching us talk and ask him questions and highlight his creativity and his genius. And I heard his dad say he was signing the book for someone, and I heard his dad say, I always knew, it's wonderful to see him finally do something like this, And like in his dad, you can just imagine the dialogue of this guy's life. And how wonderful he had suddenly given a platform and an opportunity and a bit of encouragement. He had blossomed, right? I just that just made it just gave me that moment of confirmation about what we're doing, why this is important, not just the particular act, but the impact, the ripple of that story, of that stone thrown into the pond of life, is making it hits the shore somewhere that transforms.
Yes.
I don't know. Does that make any sense?
Oh, huge. The the connection to country.
So important. Like I turned up at the river, and I suddenly understood. And everyone I spoke to more than a dozen people on podcasts. And the reason, it is such a tough place to live.
Yeah.
Right. But the reason they're there is not because they're making money or because it's beautiful, and it is beautiful, but they're there because it's in their soul. There's some sort of connection that is drawn them to this place. It is their identity. They are river people, and they find they're the lucky ones. They're the person who has looked out from the coffee shop and said, "My wealth is in my land." Right? Not that I own it, but that I'm a part of it.
Yeah. Oh, what a wonderful story and a great project.
It was. I'm so lucky to, and like so grateful to have that opportunity. And I want to do the same, like, because I believe men and their struggles at the moment, and like the stats are not good this year. And
no, they're awful.
Yeah. And I think like being part of a land and being recognized, and also being given the license to take time to realize that the healing can be done by you with support of other men. You don't need necessarily, there's a lot of resources out there that are useful, but it has to start with you sitting down with an elder and maybe having a real conversation, having one of those conversations, right? The deep.
Yeah. Makes me think about the Indigenous community.
The yarning, so true. They and the accountability, like it's not soft, unicorns and roses, right?
No.
You are accountable to be a man, to walk the world, to walk your land, to meet your responsibilities. I love the Indigenous culture because and what it has to teach us in this space, because at its best, that responsibility is back to the land, right? It's not like we give, the hierarchy starts not with the man but the land. And and the connection, collaboration is so important.
Yeah, absolutely. John, we could go on for hours.
I feel like that's just opened the subject list, right? I feel like I need to catch up again soon to explore some of the things.
We will. Yeah, because I think, yes, we can have, lots of government money and all that stuff. It's got to be at the grassroots level.
Absolutely. You're spot on, Gunter, because there's two things, there's the 3 C's I want to pass on to everybody. First of all, it's capacity, right? We need to learn, right? And at the moment, there's still room for a lot of us blokes to improve our understanding of the world and our understanding of ourselves. It starts with The second one is connection. We are designed to connect. We must connect if we are to achieve anything great in the world that doesn't involve hurting someone. Then we probably need to connect with someone. And the third one is, and this is the one that I think we need to work on first, and it is very much about one man helping another bloke find it, and it's confidence, right? You need to step to yourself and your role in the community. You need to have the confidence to make a difference. Right. And it's it's not easy. It takes courage. It takes commitment. Lots of C's involved, but confidence is the place we need to step into this.
Yeah. On that note, John, let me thank you for bringing your wisdom, your humility, and your story to inspire change.
Mate, thank you so much.
We need to get away from that idea that we need to fix what's broken. That's in a nutshell.
So true.
Yeah.
Thank you, mate. It's an absolute privilege to sit at the table with a man who's not a guru, but he still inspires me every day. Thank you, brother.
Oh, so do you. So until next time, what I want to say to the community is educate and activate and share. This is fundamental. People like John, are out there in the community. We can connect with them. There's no need to have barriers of communication. So stay true, stay open, and remember your story is never over. You're just getting started.
Here.
Until next time, this is Gunter signing off.
Love to hear from you. And if you're interested, please check out my work on www.gunterswoboda.com or www.goodmengreat.com.
Thank you for listening to Inspire Change, a broadcast that strives to educate, motivate, and empower men to challenge traditions of masculinity. For more information on the Making Good Men Great movement, or for individual or group coaching sessions with Gunter, visit goodmengreat.com.